All right, let's go live here. So I am covering Michael Smerconish's mingle, pre-DNC mingle. That's what I'm doing here. I need to get the system audio working here.
I often don't think of myself that way. I feel like we're deserving of more. She's had the perfect opportunity in the last month to call all the shots and keep her distance from the media and reintroduce herself, because the first introduction was in the campaign 4 years ago, where she dropped out before a vote was cast. So she's had an opportunity now on her terms to kind of reset everything, and she's taken full advantage of it. And the level of frustration that exists among Republicans and those that you watch and hear, if you do, on Fox News is really something. I think that there are two big challenges, and I'm working on a commentary that I may have to tear up depending on what
by the way, if you're watching this live
in the next 24 hours, but it's a commentary that talks about what's about to unfold.
I put the links down for my website, ApeIt.Ink. Would appreciate it
that
if you
the vice president
me there.
Needs to maintain the level of momentum that she's established,
no big deal,
while answering the questions asked by.
I'm going to mute him for a second. And then also, if you could subscribe on my YouTube channel, SofaKingJewish. As well, you can find me on Twitter, ApeIt, APEIT_INK, same as my website, minus the underscore, APEIT.INK. Also, if you could go check out The First to Last the Nerdum. That's my little lighthearted thing, not heavy, has nothing to do with politics. It's just me and a very good old friend of mine that I work with for a very long time. It's him and I's collaboration and uncovering The First, the Last, the Nerdum, all different bits and pieces. All right, let's go back to it.
In terms of summing up my thoughts as to where the race stands, and I usually do this on a Wednesday night and then again on a Thursday night, like tonight, and then I usually stay up on Friday night. Sometimes I do think that everything that I've written for the CNN program, but I view the commentaries that I deliver on.
I do think that you mean it for 1 second here. I do think that his skews more toward 50-60 viewing habits, media habits, meaning he has cable, that sort of thing. Not quite hadn't quite made the bridge for cutting the cable and moving on.
As the first words out of my mouth on a Saturday morning. So I'm thinking of saying this: 1,363. 1,363. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. I'm sure no one could ever guess this. You're probably thinking how many days, how many hours, how many votes. It's none of that. That's how many sheets of plywood will be used to construct the platform on which the nation's 47th president will be sworn in next January. And if that sounds like a far off concept, how about this? Construction is already underway. I had no idea until I saw that news item today that they are, and it makes sense. It's a massive construction project, especially with the security concerns.
I like, the little tidbits,
if you want to know,
bits of inside
frankly,
baseball,
if there's light at the end of the tunnel,
a news junkie,
and if this tumultuous campaign is ever going to be over, know that they are right now building the set for the inauguration of next January 20.
Like the sports
I say it's a tangible sign of the presidential election entering a final phase. Both conventions are past us. Labor Day weekend, next weekend, hard to believe. The following week, the only presidential debate that's on the calendar.
We are
and
running
by
up
then,
hard on the end
this
of
is only in one or two states.
September is going to be
Some will already
explosive.
have received
I
their
think
ballots.
October is going to be
North Carolina will be the first state to cast their mail-in ballots if they exercise that right on September 6th. Early voting then kicks off on September 20th in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia. September 20. So as you who are radio listeners of mine, and by the way, I thank you for that. I really appreciate that we've established such an audience, so diverse in terms of the politics, in terms of where people are coming from, And I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate that on a
here.
school night, you know, you'd want to hang out and hear what I have to say before the
I was
final
on the
night.
Smerconish
As
thing,
you've heard me say
maybe
so many times on radio, November 5th is not so much
because
an
I live on
election
YouTube,
day
live and
as
die
it
on YouTube.
is the last day on
I
which
saw his
we can cast
thing,
ballots.
and I saw the link for the Zoom.
Vice
and
President Kamala
and I
Harris
kind of got
has
used to that from
what President Biden
with
had
Mark
lost
Halperin.
as a result of the debate.
Great.
I think this is a really
shame on me for
important
not putting
point
that
to
stuff,
make
but I'll try to
because
put that stuff
it's
below,
hard not
later.
to get caught up in the perception
Two ways,
that
kind of
she's
just
really
like this,
kicking
but it's
butt
more
now.
official.
And she's doing very well.
Mark Halperin
and really,
crew
when you
throw
step
up a
back
big
and look
thing.
at
He's
it,
got Sean Spicer,
she's reestablished the ground that
Tim
President
Dillon,
Biden
I think,
had
but
before
one
the
from the right, one from the left, and then we just have a big
not much better than that.
Playbook of the day,
and as
we
a
go
matter
through the
of
morning
fact,
meeting,
just
etc.
before
It's just
beginning
really
this
cool
conversation, I looked at some data
Trump,
from Nate Silver,
people who are
who
not
shows
sure,
that
people who will vote for
in
Harris,
the battleground states,
party
in
people,
the last
there
couple
are
of days,
polling people, there are professionals
Trump has
in the
actually
room,
done
and of course
all right.
everybody else is affiliated.
It's still
so
margin of error kind of stuff, but it's
cool.
There's reason to believe when you look at Nate Silver's polling data and then look at some of the betting markets, not all of them, but some of the betting markets actually show a bit of a rebound for Donald Trump.
I think that's because Trump has whipped up momentum the last few days.
And it might not even be credible, but it's not as if he's done something
pushing
positive.
the line on being available and very public. I've seen him on streamers. I've seen him on this. The complete opposite.
The race is still margin of error
of
kind
what
of stuff.
Harris is doing.
Whether we're looking at the national polls, whether we're looking at the battleground states, the silver data that I was just making reference to,
I don't necessarily consider Michael Smerconish like a political
here's where we
guy.
are nationally: 46.9 according to this survey from Nate Silver for Harris. 44%.
I mean, he definitely he covers the beat, but I don't think of him like I think of like Chris Matthews
needs to be
or
nationally ahead by at least 2 points,
I really
and probably closer to 4.
He's just
as
a cool
a sign where she's going to make up the ground
sometimes
that she
I agree,
needs
sometimes
in the
I
electoral
don't.
college system, which benefits the Republicans.
I can't stand other media
Pennsylvania,
personalities like
46.2 to 44.9.
He's a little bit much.
Harris.
He's good to
Michigan,
listen to
46.5, 43.6. Harris
15 minutes.
North Carolina, 45.8 to 45.4. Harris. Wisconsin, 47.4 to 44.5.
So he's just rattling off numbers of basically
Georgia,
the race is close.
45.3 to Trump's 46.8.
So allegedly there
Trump
is this rumor going around that there's going to be a
Arizona,
special guest
for Harris,
44.4 for the DNC tonight.
Trump,
and people have said George Bush.
44.8 to 44.7.
And
my God, does it get any closer than that? Virginia, 46.7 for Harris.
Excitement.
Not really
people
a
are excited.
State,
the Democrats are excited
for Trump. So all margin of error kind of stuff. And as I said at the outset, the challenge that I see for Kamala Harris is how to maintain her momentum while being asked to take positions. And for Trump, it's to try and keep his cool. With regard to Harris, there was a Wall Street Journal editorial that was published today that I thought was interesting. They of course, right of center editorial page of the Journal, but I think they make some good points. And they say this, and it's irrefutable. She hasn't done an interview of note since her elevation as the nominee, much less one with any hard questions. Her speeches, and this will include tonight, are scripted and more teleprompter safe, even than the remarks of the declining President Biden. She is the least known presidential nominee in modern times. What does she really believe? And when I read that, I thought to myself, I don't know whether she'll depart from President Biden relative to, say, Israel's handling of the situation with Hamas in Gaza, or how far is she willing to go in terms of securing the border? Is she still supportive of Medicare for all? You remember that debate, which stands out in many of our minds, in which she was a candidate in the last cycle, where we remember her for the takedown of President Biden, then Vice President Biden, on the busing issue. And for many, that's all they remember of that debate. But I was there that night. That was also the night where there was one of those questions. I love them. The candidates hate them, where they were asked to raise their hand if they want to get rid of private health insurance. Bernie's hand went up, and then kind of sheepishly, Senator Kamala Harris's hand went up as well. Is that still her position? Does she want to put an end to all private health insurance? A question of significance to some Pennsylvanians. Is she for or against fracking? And the point I'm trying to make is there's much more unknown than known still regarding the platform on which she's running for the presidency. For Trump, I think that the challenge that he faces when we get beyond tonight and beyond both of these conventions is much more personal. It's this containing of his level of frustration over her ascendancy. You know, he came out of the Republican convention not long ago looking invincible, right?
Right, I mean, cool. I just did not have massive
assassination attempt. All the polling data was headed in his direction. Republicans, just like Democrats, and what I've seen so far, ran, I think, a pitch perfect convention. The only thing that I can see,
they did,
and I've said
and
this
I think
on,
the Democrats,
radio,
I think that the calculus will be that they equally
Biden
executed
on Monday night.
to the
they
best
never
of their
should have
ability.
shoved him in
I
the
think
position
both of them did
of
that
beginning
in
his
their own
remarks
ways.
at 11:26.
For Trump, it was still pivoting around
and
Biden,
not finishing
so
until
he
almost
dropped.
12:30.
I mean, what are you going to do?
It wasn't right on a personal
it's just
level.
reality.
Here's a guy
Jesus
who
Christ,
served
the next
up
weekend,
the
I think the next weekend he was
in the end,
the assassination.
knew to step aside.
There's just
in
so
the
many
name
fucking
of,
crazy
of
things
his
here.
party.
And I should probably
it was really
keep an eye
inexcusable
on
that
my
they couldn't
chat,
have run a tighter ship that night.
I don't think
but
so, though, because I'm only getting
that,
6 or so people. You need to have
pretty
at least,
effective,
over 1,000 before you even
convention.
get
I find interesting, and I was of this observation, and I was eager to make it on tomorrow's radio show. And then, as often is the case, somebody else wrote about it extensively, and now I'm not sure.
I did read an article in our Real Clear Politics that I want to dive into.
In this case, Politico. But
just going
I've
back
always
to the
been
numbers,
interested, and we've talked about this on radio, how Republicans
and
have
how,
owned
like, if you look at 2016 numbers,
I love the song,
Pew
the Lee
Research
Greenwood
is a great
song,
one, very, like,
and God Bless the
gold
USA,
data,
and there's never been a corollary
and then you
for
compare
Democrats.
that with,
you ask Democrats, and what do they have? They have Arlo Guthrie singing "This land is your land."
2024.
This convention's been different. I mean,
granted,
I don't remember in
recent
memory the chants of USA that I've heard at this Democratic convention
are very
the camo hats.
But at the end of the day,
you might not think of that as being patriotic,
calculus,
but I put it in a category that you're more apt to see among Republicans than Democrats. And
okay, cool. So it did mute. Anyway, it's still in my ear, which is distracting. If you take all those crosstabs, I believe Clinton needed to do very well with rural voters and non-college educated people. Those two demographics Biden cleaned up on. The numbers, Biden is the high mark. Clinton is kind of like somewhere maybe in the middle or on the bottom. I don't know. We don't know. Well, it gives you a gauge. And then Harris's numbers uniformly are better, like a generic Democrat better across all the tabs. But the problem is she has the rural vote and the non-college educated people. They're not quite where they need to be. There seems to be, like, after a full month of polling, what I've been able to suss out is that her numbers growing for the black vote, for the Hispanic vote, not so great. For the youth vote, those are coming back. Those have come back, not to where Biden's levels were and where they need to be. And there might be a little bit of regression in the latest polling. So what does this mean? Nothing. It means nothing. But I think that it fundamentally shows that, yes, Harris has hit the mark for the Democrat side, but she still has some work to do. And I think that I don't know. I've kind of heard different takes on. I've seen different takes on where she falls. She definitely has the wind at her back with this DNC thing. Yeah, absolutely. But some other things that nobody's talking about are the July registered voters that came out in a few battleground states. One was Pennsylvania. And like where years ago, where the other prong on this is, one is the GOP has been cleaning up for their numbers. Now the Democrats have their numbers too, but not like the GOP. And this is something that the GOP has neglected or did neglect very much. Political malpractice likes to be kicked around a lot today in today's stuff. You have the political malpractice angle. What was my fucking point? My point about that being that the GOP, when it came time to the general election time, did not spend, the Trump campaign famously did not spend any money in 2016. So they had no ground game. It was all passion. It was totally passion, totally organic, happened, and they barely eked in. 2020, they didn't. They committed a couple errors. They still didn't have their ground game. It was a little bit better, but not where it needed to be. This year, the GOP is equal or outspent the DNC, the Democrats, on their ground game, and they're doing it in a very different way. It's a very private party way, to like where it's not hand in hand with the official party apparatus. We'll see if that's effective or not, or efficient, but these are the 2 points that people haven't talked about. One is the amount of spending in ground game that the Republicans neglected. So if anybody, you also have a third point that underlies all of this, where if you just go to the map, sometimes maps in a different election, any given election year, will favor one candidate, one side or another. Sometimes they'll not favor the party and only a candidate. Very weird things can happen. But on whole, the Republicans, conventional wisdom says that if they just take the presidential out of it and its impact up or down ballot, you have the GOP in good territory where the map does favor them. It favors them for the Senate. And the House is going to be, it was close anyway. They barely squeaked in. And the GOP could that's a very weak point in there, I think. But it's not strange to say that the Republicans are expected to win the House, the Senate, and then you go into the White House. So, I mean, you cannot say red wave. That is not the course that would happen. But if they can hit that Christmas tree up, they'll be in the game. And it'll be a very, very bad time for the Democrats. But we won't know until we know.
Of course, we expect that tomorrow in Arizona at I think 2:00 in the afternoon, he's going to get out. So nationally,
now
Harris,
he's covering the RFK Jr.
This is 538's average.
Oh, the special. I heard
43.8. RFK
some
Jr.
clowns
at
some jokers say that the special guest
what is going to happen to that
Robert
vote?
F. Kennedy Jr.
And I don't know the answer. I mean, for a while the Biden campaign was concerned that RFK staying in the race was going to be a death knell to Joe Biden, politically speaking. They all came out. 15 or so members of the candidates of the Kennedy family came to Philadelphia, stood on a stage and said, "We're with Biden. We're not with RFK." They started challenging.
I wanted to say that I think Smerconish. This is
and then
me
remember
being a
what
nerd.
happened.
I'm pretty sure his camera's the
debate
same as mine, which
was
is
never
an
supposed to occur when it occurred. It was supposed to take place in September under the aegis of the Commission on Presidential Debates.
Turn off the AI,
and one of the motivations, I think, on the part of President Biden to get on the debate stage sooner than later is that RFK Jr. was ascendant. He was at about 15% in the polls. He wasn't where he needed to be for 270 electoral votes, which was the second threshold by the Commission on Presidential Debates. But the trajectory was such that it looked like he would get there. So I think that was part of the
Michael Smerconish from CNN fame
and the Biden campaign to say, let's give a debate right now to Trump, but one of the criteria will be nobody else, only the two of us.
Again, I praise him.
And of course, that ended up being a fateful decision for President Biden.
ApeIt.Ink.
But something else that I want to point out, which is all the while that they were getting on the debate stage, just the two of them, this very well-orchestrated effort was underway at the behest of Democrats to challenge ballot position for RFK
This is what I
Jr.
crave. This is what was missing in the media landscape
about
for so long.
If you listen to what he and
somewhere
his running mate have had to say, he harbors a grudge on that basis, so much so that if he endorses Trump tomorrow, I think it'll largely be because of that, because he believes that Democrats denied him the opportunity, A, to be on the debate stage, and then B, to get on enough ballots that he could have kept some momentum.
People from different
I will believe that he's endorsing
before my time
Trump
and after
when
he
endorses Trump.
Became a
this whole thing
head.
is so volatile. I do believe he'll get out tomorrow,
Smerconish, I think, is one
and
of
the likelihood is that he'll
reasonable
endorse
voices.
Trump. But I don't know. I won't know it until I see it. Nothing would surprise me after the bear in Central Park. There's nothing that would surprise me about.
That was the
and the thing about it is he's a very bright
Halpern's
guy. I had him for an event.
It was
Norristown.
really interesting.
It feels like years ago. at the outset of the campaign.
He
of course,
RFK,
I talked to him about his vax
as a
position,
weirdo,
and we got into some of the controversies. But he has a much more populist message, and had they not had the Biden-Trump debate when they had it, I think he would have been a significant factor in this election.
Have to go raid the fridge here.
Now, if he's under 5% of the vote, I don't think it's a monolithic vote, and I don't think that his getting out, even if he does endorse Trump, necessarily sways anything. But you heard me talk about what those margins were in all the battleground states. They're so thin that anything could shift the outcome. I think there's a
damn good chance that we could
election.
Wouldn't it just be
big picture,
on
two,
target if we had an
two
electoral
good conventions with a big chapter left to play out tonight?
Heart attacks out there
what do I think the vice president needs to do? I think that she needs to continue this process of introducing herself. I think she will need to be, maybe tonight's not the night, because tonight she can get away with generalities, but she's going to have to be prepared to address all these issues that in the past she's taken a position that now would be problematic.
Be right back.
The border issue, the Israel situation, the others that I referenced. I think fracking in Pennsylvania. I think that there are pitfalls that lie ahead for her, but tonight, it's just a night of showing people that she's not a radical the way she's being portrayed in all the negative advertising by the Trump campaign. Continue to be that likable individual that she's been able to present herself as such thus far. And most importantly, then get ready for some interviews, sit down with somebody in the media. And that's what brings me full circle back to the poll question that I'm envisioning for tomorrow, because it's a function of expectations, and maybe if that bar is set so low for her, people will watch whatever the media rollout happens to be and say, well, she did fine.
I think it would be very interesting
why all
if George
this
Bush.
concern? Remember, when she was
I don't know
asked
that that's
going to
move the needle,
August,
but it's very
when
symbolic.
she'd sit down for an interview, she said, we're working on that by the end of the month.
It's very symbolic for the modern Democrat Party to attract
the 8th of August, and yet she's been able to do that.
GOP president
and again,
who was
if I were advising her, I'd say play that hand for as long
almost
as you can.
as much as Trump.
But sooner or later, she's going to be held accountable.
News articles would be written.
All right, what I would love to do right now with the help of Aleko, I apologize again for our rocky start. I think we've sorted out the bugs. Frankly, I don't know. But I'll know tomorrow when I hear from all the callers. But thank you so much for being here. With Aleko from Creative Outfits Assistance, what I want to ask you to do is go to the React panel and raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation, if you want to have something to say. And Aleko is going to orchestrate this, call on people, and I will do my best to move in rapid fire and respond to whatever thoughts you might have. Can I also just, in terms of shameless self-promotion, say that I was busy this afternoon working on the cartoon book, the electoral cartoon book. I think we're about a week away from taking orders, and I'm really excited at the way that it has come together. I'm about to make a decision as to the front jacket as well as the book title, and as soon as I do that, everything will be completed and will be ready to go. I'm hoping to. I have no margin in this. I actually stand to lose money on the proposition.
They mentioned Trump 150
I won't explain all the dynamics of it,
book.
But it's a passion project for me.
How are you going to reconcile?
Much like the newsletter.
I should
reconcile. And I just think it'll be such a great item for people to have, forever as a memento of the craziest election of any of our lifetime. But I can't gauge the demand for it. So it's a total, crap shot for me, and I may have a garage stuffed with them come Christmas time. Who knows? All right, Aleko, you run the drill. Let's do this.
You got it. All right, first up is Charles Chacalo. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and then you can.
That guy. We're kind of all in the same kind of
everybody.
circle.
Michael, your S's sound fantastic tonight.
Bullshit.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on September 18th? Trump wants to be sentenced.
Wow. Alvin Bragg has said that he won't oppose Trump's request to postpone the sentencing.
That's
we don't
right.
know yet, but
I get where you're coming from, because every one of these legal entanglements thus far has been to his
How do
advantage.
you reconcile this? That gives me a chance.
He needs a Comey. He needs
How
a
do you
Comey.
reconcile?
But I don't know,
Trump
because
being
now
mentioned 150 times,
she's going to be portrayed
and the 92-page
as being
DNC final
against cash
policy
bail and a rollover
versus
prosecutor
being
and so forth.
the future.
But she's a prosecutor.
Forward, freedom, future.
And I don't know. I know tonight you're going to probably hear from the vice president.
Or how do they
which
reconcile
would you
that?
rather?
Because if you're running,
a prosecutor or a
as the
convicted
future,
felon, I would be inclined
why would
to
you
agree
mention
with you
Trump?
if the whole house hadn't been turned
That's the
upside
biggest
down.
thing. The other thing too
just the
undercuts
last
that
month.
they have a
I mean,
movement.
if he's sentenced, if Juan Merchan sentences him on the 18th, which I'm not sure it happens, and now you're looking at the prospect of him going away
with
would that turn or would it inflame his base?
Much.
I don't know. You know my views on that case. I never thought much of that case. I think that the case that
most people did either.
That was the cleanest was Mar-a-Lago, and the one that is most perilous to him.
If you're joining live here, this is
my law school classmate Judge Tanya Chutkin in DC. If he ever gets tried for that. I'm sorry, that was a long-winded dodge. I just don't know, but it's a hell of a poll question. If in fact he is sentenced on the 18th, would we need to say with jail time?
I don't mean you.
Does it help or hurt?
You.
Next.
All right. Next up is Garrett Bourgeon. Let me ask you to unmute here, Garrett. There you go.
Hey, Michael. How are you? Great to join you again from the last mingle. And yeah, thank you again for featuring my social media post previously on one of your shows. A couple questions. Would love to get your feedback. Given the fact that RFK Jr. is expected to drop tomorrow from the race and support former President Trump, how much involvement do you think the Kennedy family will be maybe private, silencing or private delivering a speech of some type or trying to get RFK Jr. His supporters away from Trump to perhaps, consider Biden? How much involvement do you think they'll have? And two, are you surprised about how much Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, really rose so quickly, opposed to, let's say, Governor of California, Gavin Newsom,
if I had my
really
thing turned
has,
on like he does
other
the
than
AI,
speaking
it would
for
follow me
a few minutes with the California delegation, that he wasn't, somebody who was more, verbose or giving a individual speech.
Well, I'm going to take your, thank you, Garrett. I'll take your second question first.
Sure.
I think she would have been a stronger candidate emerging from some type of a mini primary. I thought that would have been in her best interest and the nation's best interest. And selfishly, I thought how exciting
nobody knows if it all
came down to tonight.
That's the bottom
tonight
line.
would have been the
that's
night.
the bottom brass tacks. Nobody knows if it's a good idea
competing for votes. Maybe
for Trump to run a third time,
and no one would ever
Harris
have stepped onto the stage to compete with her. I don't know.
No one knows.
If she's in the debate and stumbles, then I think people will say, as I said, she should have had, to put this in like preseason speak, she should have had some touches. She should have had some snaps rather than just getting in there against Trump on that
politics
encounter.
Is just much about practice and exposure and running the gauntlet as it is anything
then I guess
else.
This would have been the right outcome.
The work
I
makes
didn't
the man and
anticipate
woman.
it. I always thought
the work makes the man and woman.
I saw the data.
That
her
is true in every,
whether
it's local,
as President
state,
Biden's. Her approval was
federal
in the 30s.
politics.
So when I saw all those polls
that
said 2/3 of Americans
I'm not saying that people can't on the edge case kind of roll in there like
Trump. By extension, I thought that applied to Harris.
Farmer
Never anticipating
Jones
that with Biden stepping aside, there would be this enormous outpouring among Democrats
doesn't matter. You
supportive
got to
of
show
her.
the work.
Sure.
I'm going to try and move quickly so that I don't keep you over, an allotted time and more people get to comment. So go ahead, Aleko, you take control.
I'm going to change my.
Alrighty, next up is Max Kargas.
Hey, Michael. Glad to be back after the first Mingle event. First, I wanted to kind of give you a view from Gen Z world because I feel like that perspective doesn't get highlight a lot on your radio show and everything.
They're moving through
the
them.
Gen
There's
Z
not too many
crowd,
people
at least that I interact with, I feel is energized more now than they ever have been about a presidential election that I can remember, at least. I think it's most of it's because Kamala is just not a old timer, and they're energized, and people are talking about politics on like my social media that I've never seen talk about politics before. And I just think that I don't know if they're going to play a huge role. I hope they do, purely because I want everyone who can vote to vote. But I think they'll play a bigger role this year in the presidential election than they ever have. And second, what are your thoughts on what do you think of it? So I think Kamala should lean as far into the threat to women's rights that the Republican Party poses, depending on like what you think and whether voters think that's actually real or not. But I think they should lean in that as far as possible, because my mom is like the stereotypical suburban mom, and at least from what I think, she's energized about Kamala because of her alignment on the women's rights issues than she was under Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So if Kamala can do that and then go back towards the middle on other issues, I think that's a winning political strategy. So what do you think about that?
Two quick reactions. One, Donald Trump has never looked so old.
So how do the Dems reconcile?
He's never been as old as he is today. That goes for all of us. But the comparison between the two, it's like we never looked at him as the old guy. We always looked at him as the guy full of vinegar and something else, because it was always a comparison to Joe Biden. So I'm not surprised that there's more simpatico among younger voters in your circle as they look at the two of them, and they can more associate with Kamala Harris than they can with him. Secondly, abortion rights are undefeated. I mean, since Dobbs overturned Roe versus Wade,
not only that,
I'm pretty
but
sure
in
what I'm about
I think to the GOP's favor,
every election where it's been a ballot initiative,
there's quite a few states
where it's
under
been
10, I think,
at issue
that have
between
some
two
kind
competitive candidates. The abortion right candidate has been successful.
On the ballot by the people, which was petitioned in. That's true here in Missouri.
The border.
That's true in Nebraska, I think.
And then overarching the economy, stupid, as we always say. Those are the issues in this election.
Docket in,
I don't think that the threat to
Arkansas, but I think it got
is really changing minds.
But it's still ongoing.
Dug in on Trump, you either think that he was attempting to overthrow the government or not. And I think that the Biden campaign realized, based on their polling, that just wasn't earning any more among the people that they most need to reach.
Because it's immediately in your area
over to you.
if it makes to you.
Alrighty.
If it goes
Next
to you.
up is Lucas Leder Pasquet.
Hey, so I kind of just commented this in the chat as well, but I live in Virginia. I've been listening to you since 2015, and you know,
I'm not to be a sucker fan or anything, but it's not like I've always forever been a true blue fan of Smerconish. Never.
I know this is controversial, but I was going to vote for RFK.
Not forever and always.
Kamala
I
probably
just
would have
know
been my
I'm familiar
second
with
choice.
the name from
I've been like a Democrat or left
old.
my whole life.
I
don't know how I'm kind of upset, I guess, over the last 24 hours because I'm disheartened by the two-party system. And
I'll get used to being
I'm
disappointed.
probably going to end up looking into what other third parties exist in Virginia at the moment because I'm not really sure where I'm going to turn.
But you should vote your conscience.
I like Kamala. I like Tim Walz. I just don't like the nature of how we govern at the moment.
I have to say, if the reports are accurate that RFK Jr. both reached out for Harris and reached out for Trump, it to me so diminishes any conviction, that I thought he had. Disagree with him if you will. I thought that he was a person of conviction, and it just makes it seem like he was willing to negotiate with
Robert
the
F.
highest
Kennedy
bidder.
Jr. You could
And
say
what
many
does that
things,
say
but I do think that he
the
can be
people who were
extremely
supportive of
practical.
him,
I have heard him talk.
of which there were many. I don't know. I'll be very interested to see what he says tomorrow, what his explanation might be,
like
and
many
when
people
we learn
have maybe entertained
what
their
went
thought
on
for
in
about
terms of his overtures
2.5 to 5 seconds that I would vote for him.
To both of the candidates. Next.
Alrighty. Next up, we have Stephen Oliveira.
I have my other mic. You'll hear me, but it'll be through this mic. Through my other, not through my mic.
Hi, Michael. Stephen here. So I have a couple of thoughts. I did want to mention that I'm a writer, director, producer. I've watched a lot of the interviews of the MAGA crowd, and you tell me if I'm going off cue here, but
I don't think it's going to hurt.
I'm a Kamala supporter, and
echo cancellation.
Obviously, Trump, it's ridiculous to me. So what I want to do is get a few people together. I want to go out and shoot some video. And when I always see these interviews of these people with their sunglasses and their hats on, and they get asked questions, and then the interviewer doesn't quite go far enough.
Well, you can do that
really
now.
Get them to drop their jaw and not know what he's talking about.
People are doing
right now. Don't know what they're talking about.
Either they're some jackass, nobody like me, who's just doing this.
And interviews, and I have backup questions that I can get them in a box where it would really sort of get them, the message across. Maybe people will stay home.
If I remember, I'll talk about this guy a little bit later.
They don't
when I was
know how to answer the question. They don't know what they're talking about.
That's what he was talking about.
The interview questions that I'll put to them would
the
be
one that went out in the newsletter was limited to 100 people.
Hard for them to sort of give an honest answer to, or they don't know what the answer is, or they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to go out and capture video, and then I have to get it to the right places, like yourself or CNN or MSNBC.
Or YouTube or your own.
So your premise is what? That if only you could expose the lack of understanding, knowledge that they have, you could turn them, or you could turn other people by showing that.
I think in September, October, I can gather some good footage, really, really pointed interviews to sort of make, who said the other night in the convention to get it over the top.
I didn't ask this guy if he was doing it for archival or history reasons,
of course
or
I'm
if
going
he's
to do
doing
something
it for
anything that can
current.
Look, I know everyone should vote, but you know what? If somebody stays home and doesn't vote for Trump, sorry, that's a vote for Kamala? Yes. So
that's wrong.
It's my goal to get as many people to vote for Kamala.
That's what I told this guy earlier.
Really interested in
why would you
want
to do that, even if you disagree? Why would you want to discourage them to vote?
I mean, I do see,
that's
Stephen,
not cool.
I do see a lot of that, and I see it at both ends of the spectrum.
And I
see it on the Daily
tear
Show,
into the guy.
And
I just asked him an honest question, like, why would you want to do that?
On Fox,
and then he started answering, but I think he thought that I think he was confused because the mics were not. It was raucous.
I think the line of questioning was
nobody was doing anything bad.
Name one accomplishment from the part of the vice president, and then there was silence, and of course, they probably left on the cutting room floor anybody who did have an answer to that question. So I'd like to see what you come up with. I no disrespect, I don't know that it's all that unique, but maybe it'll be unique in the way that you do it. Go ahead, Aleko.
Next up, we have ML Shaw.
Hello, thank you. Been a big fan for a little bit now on YouTube, but my question was, so the Democrats for this whole DNC thing have really made Trump still is a centerpiece, but I was just wondering, how do you think that they reconcile that with the fact that they want to also be future forward, freedom, all that, but if you're so centered on Trump, and evidence for that would be like on their policy paper, which is 92 pages. There was 150 mentions of that. I wonder how they're going to be able to reconcile those two things, because if you truly have an Obama type movement, why would you ever mention your opponent? Matter of fact, for me, it kind of is a turnoff. I mean, I'm kind of going to vote how I'm going to vote, but to me, it's kind of a turnoff if you keep bringing him up. How can we move into the future? Because this is the last time Trump can ever run again. Yeah. Anyway, that's what my question or your thoughts on that were.
Well, if the question is if Donald Trump loses, does the movement go away? And I don't think that the movement goes away, because I think that the movement was there to be what do I want to say? Led. Now, he's a unique personality, and I can't see anyone on the horizon who can do what he's been able to do, but there's some legitimate issues of people who vote for him. I don't paint them all with one brush. There are many among us, particularly among high school educated whites, who feel as if they've been forgotten.
Right.
There was a great book, one of my favorite books, and I've read them all and interviewed the authors of like all of the postmortems on 2016. And to a lesser extent 2020, but the one that I think of the most was written by Ben Bradley Jr., so son of the Washington Post editor, and it is called The Forgotten, and it happens to be about one county in Pennsylvania, Luzerne, which is where both of my parents are from. They have coal roots, and it just talks about. I mean, I like knew the people he was writing about. Didn't know them literally, but because of my relatives, I felt like I knew them. And it's not that Donald Trump, it's not that they clung to Donald Trump, if that's a word. They were out there with grievances, believing that they'd been sold a bill of goods, that jobs weren't coming back. They'd been promised by countless leaders that things were going to get better, and they didn't. And they feel like they are now second or third class citizens. They're still going to be there, and their needs are still going to have to be met. And someone's going to get their vote. Now, I don't know if it's going to be organized, and I don't know if it'll be like the Tea Party movement that dissipates. Although I think that the Tea Party movement were the roots of the MAGA movement.
I agree with that.
But if you're not for Trump and you don't like MAGA, don't make the mistake that all that ends with the election of Kamala Harris, because I don't think it does.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Aleko.
Next up, we have Gary Stevens.
Well, that was cool. Interesting.
Go ahead, Gary.
I can't think about it.
Hey, Michael. Hey, the first thing I just want to say, I really enjoy your show on Saturday, and love that you play in the middle.
Oh wow.
That's very important to me, to watch any news show that the person's kind of giving both viewpoints.
Right there.
In terms of tonight, I found it very interesting when you brought up the fact
I
that
just don't see how
the way the polls stand now for Harris and Trump
it's not
are
that
very
I think
similar
that Trump is
to
ever
where
going to go away
Trump
forever.
and Biden were before the debate.
That's not what my.
So that being said,
I understand that it's
really
going to
feel
morph
whoever
and it's
wins
going to
that
whatever.
debate
I'm
is
just
gonna be
saying,
the
like,
next
Trump
president.
physically can't
And
run.
then-
I think the debate's huge.
It's over.
I don't know if there'll be a second one.
I mean, if he does,
I don't know
would
if there'll be a
really
second one.
shocked
I think if there's a decisive winner,
I
the
think he would
way
be
Trump
thoroughly
was the
drummed
winner
out
in the
at that
first
point,
debate, not so much
even
because of
he's
his
at the height
performance, but because of
his
Biden's
power.
frailties. If there's a big winner in that debate,
and the only way that
I don't think that person is going to be willing to go and do it again. If it's close, if people are disagreeing as to who got the best of whom, then maybe they'll do it again. I'm interested to see if there's agreement on a second debate, real agreement
Trump 150
before that first debate. And even if there is, if Trump were to be a big
I know you
victor,
can do two things at once.
I could see him just coming up with a reason and saying he's not going to get back on that debate stage. Self-control.
We're still in the image
in
phase,
her case,
the construct
she's got to be
phase of
prepared to deal with the issues, and maybe she can. Maybe I'm selling her short.
Right?
In his case, it's impulse control.
If the public image of
because
her is going to be freedom,
if he's you
look at her and you think
he's the menacing force
lurking
behind her the way that he was with Hillary. I don't think
hope,
he'll get away with it this time. Not with
bullshit, whatever,
an absence of third-party candidates who are going to just siphon 5-6% of the vote that he needs to provide the margin, because he's never getting higher than 45, maybe 46.
There's a big difference.
Go ahead, Aleko.
All righty. Thank you, Gary. Tyler Axt, you are up.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody's faces. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
So my thought is that Harris really benefits from the ability for voters to subscribe their own beliefs to her with the lack of interviews, lack of exposure, because they really see her in the similar light as we see so many different potential elected figures before they enter the race. So they saw the same thing with Hillary Clinton before she entered the race.
I guess
we saw her numbers were so high, and then as soon as she entered the race, it was low.
Really is tired of everybody.
So people are able to subscribe
new.
anything that they want to her right now, which is really, really good for her. And she just needs to now ride that wave because she's already in the process.
If I were,
what are your thoughts on that?
I would want to talk about him.
I think that's true. I mean, you can see in her whatever you would like to see. If that's your point, I'm agreeing with it.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think
conjunction of them
because she's not an old white guy.
Play into.
She's able to ride that wave even faster.
Help. Not all, but most.
Maybe. I just think there was such.
What's the hesitation?
Because I don't know that I see race in it. I don't know that. I mean, maybe part of it is that people are eager to break that ceiling and would love to have a female president and a female president of color. I mean, that could be part of the motivation of some. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I think that President Obama was the beneficiary of that. I think there were a lot of whites who respected him, thought he was a bright guy, were eager to vote for him. And the cherry on top of the cake was you felt good about yourself at the same time because you were voting for a black guy for president. Aleko.
All righty. Tom from Wisconsin, you are up.
I'm from Minocqua, Wisconsin. But, hello, Michael.
I wonder how.
Hi.
So on Saturday, I think it was James Carville on your show who said that he doesn't have any problem with Kamala Harris not doing big interviews or press conferences. I mean, it's been a pretty short time since this has all unfolded, and she's had a campaign to, like he said, he had a campaign to get organized, everything else, this convention that's had good nights and not so good nights. But what I would hope is that she might make herself available to local media. So like when she's in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, right after she announced the appointment of, or the selection of Walls, or when she was in Milwaukee the other night, that she make herself available to local media, which might be a little easier, a little gentler. And then eventually, I would hope, like you said, by the end of the month to go on Meet the Press.
I don't know if that's etiquette, but it feels
you know what?
right
She's
to
getting
me.
these big crowds, having a great convention. What difference does it make if she does interviews with 60 Minutes?
Tom, I totally agree. And that would be the way I would counsel her if I were offering her advice, because my impression
all kinds of
the network affiliates,
I would say,
is that they're not partisan and they don't have an edge. And so it's like a double benefit that she could be in Eau Claire and she could sit down with whomever the personality is who commands the biggest audience, respond to that individual's questioning, and move on to North Carolina and come to Philadelphia and do likewise, and be totally protected from the complaint that she hasn't answered questions. What are you talking about? I've sat down with the Action News team in Philadelphia, et cetera, et cetera. And get the reps in
they
that
have a
way
really good personality and
before sitting down for those other shows. I agree. I agree. There's a caller. It's funny. I go home thinking about a lot of the radio callers and things that are said to me. Not always, but today there was a woman who called I asked her, what do you do for a living? And she said that she had been a realtor, and I think she had said that she had been a landscape designer. And it stands out for this reason, because she said to me, like, what's the big deal? She just became the candidate, and she's got to get it together. And then I said to her, what do you do for a living? And she told me, and I said, well, if it were a realtor plucked from obscurity,
this is
suddenly named the candidate, I would be understanding that you don't have it all figured out. What was that movie with the accountant? And he suddenly becomes president. Was it Dave? I think it was Dave. Like, if Dave becomes the president, or maybe Dave was just the brains of the president. I don't know. I may have it mixed up.
Like any other
voter. My point was, if you're the sitting vice president, you ought to have a position on the issue.
Does that shit all the time.
It shouldn't take anything for you to articulate what you need to do differently at the border, what you're going to do in terms of your level of support of Israel and Gaza, whether you are for or against. Like, it's your stock and trade. This is what you do. So I think that she ought to have it all sorted out. But again, from a strategic standpoint, I'd be doing the same thing.
Insta360.
Next.
All right, James S. Lander, you are up.
Hey, we're going to do this just for 5 more minutes. And may I say again, I'm so apologetic. I'm probably apologizing to the wrong people, because you're the people who made it in. I have to apologize tomorrow to those who got cut out. I don't know what happened. We had room. We thought we paid for it for many, many more people, and then it got limited at the outset. I'm really sorry about that. And we'll try and do better next time. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Aleko. I interrupted you.
No worries. James, you are up.
Happy to be here. Sorry that the fields are down. One run to the Braves. I'm watching that. Michael, I asking an honest question. I live on the coast on Virginia. I went to a military academy for college and was an officer in the Navy. I spent a lot of time around people and folks from different cultures. Even after the what happens with this election, and we mingling and getting outside of our bubbles, how do you take that message to folks in quote unquote middle America, flyover America? Because there's not as vast populations or as diverse populations in those communities. And so when you live on the coast in Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, you are forced in some ways to interact with folks if you get out of your house. But if you live, and this is a stereotype, if you live in Appalachia and you don't have the vast, diverse population, then
it's kind of cool.
I'm mingling and I'm doing my part to learn about folks different from me, but they're not learning anything, and they're scared of stereotypes associated with me. So then that constant divide exists, and then it keeps coming back to this circular argument of the people on the coast think they're elitist. We're not elitist.
Not quite.
We're engaged, and we want them to be engaged, but I can't force you to get to know me.
So it's a valid argument. I can't drop somebody from Indiana, on your doorstep in Virginia. I totally get that. And I'm not thinking just geography, and I'm not thinking just race.
Link out there,
it's largely a class issue. Class meaning economically defined. And within every community, there are. This is too simplistic, but there are haves and there are have-nots. I mean, Charles Murray wrote "Coming Apart." Focused on whites.
I'm sure she'll get voters.
And the reason that he focused on whites is because he said that he didn't want to have the data skewed by racial differences. And his point was, within each community, could be black, could be white, could be Asian, could be Hispanic, we've gone our separate ways. And those who can afford to are living distant from those who are not well off. And he used Belmont in Massachusetts, and he used Kensington in Philadelphia as examples of where people are in gated communities or virtually gated communities if they can afford it, or they've been left behind. I guess what I'm trying to say is do the best that you can to mingle within your own community as a starting point. I can't solve the next step, but I know that within communities, I mean, maybe this is more of a statement about me than it is about the nation. I could name for you now the neighbors on the blocks plural, where I grew up. I could go down, at my age, I could go down the street and I could tell you when I was 12 who lived in every house. I would struggle to do that today. There's more distance between the houses where I live now and the houses where I grew up. That's part of the issue. But I don't know, is it me, or do we just not know our neighbors the way that we used to? Somebody knocks on your door today, you're like hesitant to, what's this all about? Mingle as best you can on a local level. It's a great starting point. Two more, Aleko, and then we all say good night and we go and watch the vice president's speech.
All right, you got it.
I'm not going to watch.
Sean White, you are next.
We'll see.
So I'll be quick and respect the lightning round rules. So I have a song for the Democrats if they want it. James Brown, "Living in America."
Love it. It's a great tune. Yeah, it's a great tune. I enjoyed the other night with the roll call vote, all the songs. I got such a kick out of that. And in the novel that I wrote, Talk, the roll call vote at the convention is a key scene. I've always loved it. And this fictitious talk radio host that I created is speaking for the Florida delegation in the roll call. So I loved that there was more time and attention put into the roll call this year and done musically than there has been in any recent convention. Final hitter, who's it going to be, Aleko?
Final
hitter.
Speaker here, we got Mary.
I think somebody was commenting on the fact that I was like,
hey, Michael. Whoops.
Which is
Hi.
fine.
Can you hear me?
I can, and I can see you as well.
Great, thanks. I was privileged to be at the 1980 DNC in New York City, and I just wondered if you have a favorite memory from any of the conventions you've been to.
That's a good question.
What a good. I have so many memories.
Question.
I'll tell you, the embarrassing memory is that I was there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, when Sarah Palin came out, embarrassed for this reason, and delivered an unbelievable speech. Unbelievable speech. So much so that I remember seeing a friend as we were running out of the arena, to get a shuttle bus or something.
I guess I have this
how
on
stupid am I? I said, I think they picked the wrong candidate. She was so on that night that I thought that Republicans had caught lightning in a bottle by making her their choice. And then, of course, we all know how that ended. I guess for me, my favorite convention moment would be the 1984 Republican convention, because I was a delegate, an alternate delegate, which meant that I had to run for the position. I had to go out and screen. I had to deliver speeches. I had to win the Republican endorsement to get my name on the sample ballot, because a lot of people ran to be delegates and alternate delegates. And at that time, I would have been 24 years old. I was the youngest elected delegate or alternate at that convention. It was in Dallas, and I was totally caught up in the moment. I loved it. It was Reagan's re-election, and I was totally on the train.
Never go
and
wrong with Reagan.
you know, when you're a young person in that room where there are so many older people, you get to do things because, hey, let the kid come along. So the memories that I have of Dallas in '84, I guess, would be at the top of my list. And I ran for that while I was a senior in college. It was just a very cool experience. So that would be my story. I guess not too exciting, but I'll always remember it. Okay, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Cartoon book in about a week if you're interested in that, and I sure as hell hope you are, or my garage is going to be stuffed with them. Thank you for being listeners, for being newsletter subscribers, for watching the CNN show and being supportive. Hey, can I just say, we have a really good thing here insofar as the people who call the program
I do that because I think
are very well intentioned. You know, there are a couple who are a pain in the ass, a few in the last week, as a matter of fact, who get through. But there's disagreement, and that's fine. But there's civility, there's diversity, and most days it seems to work. I am my own harshest critic, and there are some that I'll say to TC, you know, wish we had done something different today, wish I had done something different today. But I feel like we've built this community, and yeah, I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it. Good night. Enjoy the Vice President's speech. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And thank you all.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. All right, now maybe I have my keyboard back here. Oh, was this the right? Yeah, that's the right one here. All right, we'll go to YouTube here, live, switching it up, and find some fucking live. Yep, there we go. Live. I live on YouTube, like most men I know. Live now, DNC protests. Oh, this is all entertainment stuff. Okay, ABC News. We'll do WAPO.
Daughter of immigrants, as a black woman descended from enslaved people. I am here tonight because I am an American and because I am a voter and because we, the people, are stronger when all our voices are heard.
Except for the Palestinian uncommitted voters that you guys left outside.
One standing on this
I don't know
stage,
if anybody knew about that, but that's a fucking
the lead character in this story.
100,000 people voted uncommitted in Michigan.
All of you.
And all they wanted was like a Palestinian person to come up and talk about
you
this stuff.
are the fixers.
But they wouldn't
Dare I say it? You are the Olivia Pope.
And now they're gaining momentum on Twitter. I don't know that it's going to make any difference.
You are the superheroes saving this democracy. It is you, not me, who have the greatest power to convince your loved ones to vote. So, just like Michelle Obama told us,
I really don't care.
Let's do something.
I told my sister the other day, I said, hey,
let's
make sure you
a video.
I don't give a shit who you vote for, but make sure you
out your phones.
And you vote.
Everybody take out your phones. We're going to make a moment. Can somebody bring me my phone? I want to capture this historic moment and share it with the people that we love.
But why would you need to do that if you... Who's that?
Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take this video, guys. We're all going to take it together. We're going to post it to social media, text your friends, send this message out into the world. When I say when we fight, you're going to say...
I mean, I'm sure if you're a Democrat,
are you ready? Okay, let's record. We're recording. You ready, Tony?
Yep.
Okay, ready? When we fight! When we fight! When we fight! Are you ready for Kamala Harris to win? Good, because when Kamala wins,
Democrats are
America
fired up.
wins.
That's the whole point of the convention.
We did it, Joe. Thank you, Tony.
I don't get to stay?
No, you gotta go.
Joe.
Bye, everybody.
Tony Goldwyn, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so listen. It's come to my attention that there are some folks who struggle or pretend to struggle with the proper pronunciation of our future president's name. So, hear me out. Confusion is understandable. Disrespect is not.
This is the helping thing about comma.
We are going to help everyone get it right. Here to help me are some very special guests.
Cam, oh wait. Yeah, cam, like a camera, like camera. And some people do it on purpose.
Thank you, ladies. Can you tell us your names?
Hello, everybody. My name's Amara. And my name is Leela, her little sister.
And what are you here to do?
To teach you how to say your auntie's name.
Okay. So how do you pronounce it?
First you say comma like a comma in a sentence. Then you say la like la 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 la.
Put it together and it's 1, 2, 3, Kamala.
I know this is supposed to be cute and whatever, but it's also can be very much perceived as very fucking insulting.
Everybody over here say la.
Together. For president.
We no longer do politics. It's a team blood sport. It's a game. I mean, it's always been. This is just no proof. I'm only sticking around for the special guest. The people on CNN were having a fake discussion about who they wanted more, Beyonce or Taylor Swift.
Please welcome Mina Harris, Ella Emhoff, and Helen Hudlin.
Taylor Swift.
Hi, I'm Mina.
I'm Ella.
And I'm Helena. I grew up in Oakland, California, in a house full of extraordinary women. My mom, my grandma, and my auntie,
the Democrat
who
Party
showed me the meaning of
undefeated
service.
when it comes to
Helping
women.
her sister, a 17-year-old single mom, fighting for justice for the American people, and still cooking Sunday family dinner. She guided me. Now she's guiding my own children, and I know she'll guide our country forward.
Kamala came into my life when I was 14. Famously a very easy time for a teenager. Like a lot of young people, I didn't always understand what I was feeling. But no matter what, Kamala was there for me. She was patient, caring, and always took me seriously. She's never stopped listening to me, and she's not going to stop listening to all of us.
Except for the Palestinian thing.
Kamala Harris is my godmother. To me, her advice means everything. Whether it's pursuing my passions, making an impact, or finding hope when the world doesn't feel so hopeful. She taught me that making a difference means giving your whole heart and taking action.
She's fighting for economic opportunity, LGBTQ plus equality,
If the Republicans
reproductive
were smart,
freedom,
they would hit that
because
T
we are
with
not
a fucking,
going back.
Dump truck.
She's fighting for social justice, health justice, environmental justice. And she isn't alone. We're all in this fight together.
So let's keep up the fight. Let's keep up the joy.
And let's elect this extraordinary
so they're trying
woman
so many
as
different
our
things.
next
They're trying.
president.
We are not Trump. Fuck Trump. The future. Forward. Joy. Now it's fighting. Somebody was talking about how they did the USA chant and try to be patriotic and show the common people, like common workers, you know, to give that edge.
Please welcome actor and comedian D.L. Hughley.
Hey now, hey Chicago, how y'all doing? What's happening in California? Now, wait, where those AKAs at? Where they at? You know what? In 3 months, ain't gonna be no living with y'all. I can tell you this, I don't blame Donald Trump for not wanting to debate Kamala. I've been married to a black woman for 40 years and I ain't won one debate. I'm owing $93,000. Now, of course, Trump is saying that Kamala isn't black. I guarantee you this, Kamala's been black a lot longer than Trump's been a Republican. And if he keeps sliding in the polls the way he is, the only way he can keep Kamala out of the White House is if he buys it and refuses to rent it to her. Of course, Kamala's getting broad support. They got black men for Kamala, white men for Kamala,
women,
Latinos
for
and Asians for Kamala. They even have Republicans for Kamala.
Connected to the, again, uncommitted people.
Republicans for Kamala. I guess Donald Trump will finally know what it's like when you get left for a younger woman.
Pro-Hamas.
But seriously, Kamala knows the truth about the American dream, that hard work is not enough. Hard work alone is not enough to succeed. That you need access and information and opportunity. And she knows that some folks are often denied those very things. As president, she will give each and every one of us a fair shot in life. But I have to admit, I didn't always believe that. I mean, if you told me the 15-year-old me would be on stage supporting a prosecutor and a teacher, there is no way that I would have believed you. But because of that, I made assumptions about Kamala's record. And I often repeated them to a lot of people. Then one day, Kamala invited me to her house. She put her hand on my shoulder and she asked me to do some research. Something I had never done. Something a lot of people I know had never done before. Imagine attacking someone's character without a single Google search. So I did what I should have done in the first place. I learned that she had done for us exactly what she promised to. I believe that your apology should be as loud as your accusation, and I'm here apologizing in front of the whole damn world.
What?
I was wrong.
What are you talking about?
I was wrong, and I'm so very glad I was wrong because, Kamala, you give me hope for the future, a future where my grandchildren, Nola and Stevie, had the freedom to control their own bodies, where they have the opportunity to go as far as their wits and their talents would take them.
Bizarre.
That future, ladies and gentlemen, is possible, but only if we elect Kamala Harris as the 47th President of the United States of America. I will say this to you, the best piece of advice I've ever gotten in my entire life is you don't have to know what you will do, just know what you won't. And we won't go back.
Well, D.L. Hughley with a message that is exactly the kind of thing the Harris camp wants to get out to black men in America, and really hitting this point, Rhonda and James, of look it up, learn about her record. And of course the line about, if you ever told me that I'd be supporting a prosecutor and a teacher, that's really effective. Talk to us about where that message goes, James.
I mean, they really need to reach this demographic. It is so central to the Democratic coalition to win. So key to Barack Obama's success in 2008 and 2012 was bringing African-American men who usually vote at far lower rates into the political process, getting them to vote. And when Obama was president, Democrats really struggled in 2010 and 2014 to keep African-American male turnout high. And I do think that as we saw in the Georgia Senate race, the Georgia governor's race, there is
bring myself back
real challenge sometimes in convincing African-American men to vote for an African-American woman. And clearly they are sensitive to that, and they're taking it on head on instead of trying to kind of pretend that it's not a potential problem.
Yeah, he could have had just a flat out funny message and just given like a performance that was supportive of Kamala Harris, and he had some funny jokes. But he also was delivering this very serious message and like a directive to people of like, learn about her record, Rhonda.
Yeah, it could be what James is describing, a political strategy, but it also gets to an underlying theme that misinformation is something that this election is really grappling with. We've seen the rise of AI in election memes, and a lot of politicians are very concerned that will be what attacks them, and they won't be able to do anything about it because it spreads virally. And it's hard to combat. And the U.S. doesn't have, the tools yet to catch up with the technology. So it also gets to that if you're hearing things about a candidate, then research it.
And I think it does. That's a really good point.
What kind of tools do we need?
They know Trump is going to throw the kitchen sink. And the angrier Trump gets, the closer we get to the election. If he does feel like this is slipping away from him, we know from reporting that he uses insanely nasty terms to describe Kamala Harris. It's going to get really ugly. And I think part of that speech is like trying to inoculate against the ugliness that they fear is to come, and especially if 2016 and what he did to Hillary Clinton is any guide.
Yeah, J.M. Rieger, let's talk about how Trump has been sort of spreading falsehoods about even who his supporters are. I mean, he was like sharing fake images claiming Taylor Swift was one of his supporters, J.M.
Well, and just a week ago or so, he was saying that this massive rally that Harris and Walz had in an airport hangar was an AI generated image, which of course it wasn't. It was false. This gets right at what Rhonda and James were just talking about. And when Trump was at the convention and post, his speeches, he gives these press conferences, and there's so many falsehoods in them. I think what James was just talking about is this is really going to potentially go into the gutter here in the final 2+ months. Maybe not, especially if as James was saying, if Trump feels that this starts to slip away. And part of this whole "we're not going back" thing, I think, is also trying to remind folks, trying to bring some of those negatives about Trump that are baked in. Sometimes folks maybe memory hold them a little bit. They're trying to bring them back to the surface because Trump acts. He is trying to sell that his 4 years were prosperity. There's only folks were happy with that. And what Harris is trying to do is to remind them of what they describe as chaotic times, as bad times, bring up some of those negatives to the surface to help them.
See, they're already kind of
like let's run through some of the issues we're hearing about tonight, and then some of the painting of the picture of Kamala Harris we're seeing tonight. What are some of the issues we're hearing a lot about?
I mean, at the top, it's reproductive rights. And if you have been watching all of this week, that is the reoccurring theme. That is what Democrats want to bring home. That is where we have heard most of the storytelling, the personal narratives surround that issue. We're likely also going to hear some things about immigration, because that is something that is an area of vulnerability for the Democrats right now. I was talking to a Democrat from the Senate earlier today who said, they're going to be raising that issue that the Republicans.
I'm going to mute them because they're fucking talking heads and have nothing to say of consequence. These are the worst talking heads. These are just warm bodies on a screen. They're not high quality. You can find me on ApeIt.Ink, ApeIt.Ink, ApeIt.Ink. That is where I go. I like to do this thing. I might do a semi-routine check-in or show or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of percolating on some thoughts about that. But you can find me here. I would really appreciate it if you could throw your email in if you want a free newsletter. I don't write 3 or 4 times a day. It's when it catches, right? Or if there's something newsworthy going on. Current events could be heavier side of opinion. That not too far out there, but I mean, I am me. You can also do this, see the same video thing of whatever catches my fancy. This is kind of like the ApeIt.Ink video / me thing. SofaKingJewish on YouTube. Would appreciate if you give me a like or a comment. That would be great. Also, I am on Twitter. APEIT_INK. ApeIt_Ink. I was almost smooth there. Also, this is Mark Halperin's Substack. I will try to tweet that out later or share it out later. This is where you would find that the two-way thing that I was talking about, and then other people were talking about in the chat on the Smerconish mingle, was about this two-way. So this is where you would go to follow him to see a post, and typically what he'll do is he'll put out the time, he'll put out the show or the thing, usually sometimes an hour before, sometimes way ahead of time, and then he'll give the two-way the Zoom link here, and then the Zoom link you have to register yourself with Zoom, so you don't have jackasses coming in and doing untoward things. They do the Monday through Friday for the most part. There's been a morning meeting with Sean Spicer and I think Tim Dillon, I believe is his name. He's the left, the Democrat side, and then Sean Spicer is the ad hoc Trump side. GOP. Anyway, I'll go back to here. Okay, so they're doing this. I'll turn this back on, and then we'll
crash
who this person
like
over.
Metal folding chairs falling.
Then I'm gonna be
154 gunshots blaring. Hiding
That's
in
like
the
going on,
coats.
like right now in Chicago.
Trying to sing with my students. Trying to read to them.
All right,
trying to drown out the sounds.
This is just fucking atrocious. All right.
Crying.
Pull that out.
Running.
I'm gonna kill that. I can't. I don't want to hear that. All right. I've been ML. Again, SofaKingJewish on YouTube. ApeIt.Ink. Would appreciate it if you could meet me there. But I've been doing this thing. We just did this Smerconish thing and went a little bit over. But I do appreciate, and I'll see you next time.